Hello everyone, I'm Rajeshri. A very warm welcome to you all in today's episode and a huge thanks for being with me in my new experimental musical journey. Today, you all might have noticed that the title of this episode is a bit unusual. Celebrating Mozart through few letters and an MRI. In 21st century, as soon as we hear the word MRI, automatically it comes to our mind. It is magnetic resonance imaging, a radiological medical investigation. But trust me, this channel has got nothing to do with any sort of things like that. What I am trying to do today, I genuinely felt that celebrating Mozart through his glory and success is not going to make it complete. We need to see, we need to look into the invisible pain, the pathos, the sorrow associated with his life. And for that, we don't need an MRI machine. We need few letters, a couple of correspondences, and that is my way of doing a musical resonance imaging or Mozart's resonance imaging. So to start with, I would like to share the great writer Maynard Solomon, who wrote a book on Mozart's life, and I have found this bit from an article which is written by Robert Riley, where Solomon says, Mozart was put on earth, it seems, not merely to provide an anodyne to sorrow or an antidote to loss, but to trouble our rest, to remind us that all is not well, that neither the center nor the perimeter can hold, that things are not what they seem to be. The masquerade and reality may well be interchangeable, that love is frail, life transient, faith unstable. It's not that I am going to make this episode pretty dark, or I'm going to look into the negative sides, but I'm just trying to find out that in spite of all these events happened in his life, he gave us the music which make us so happy. Today also, in the great opera houses, his Don Giovanni, Magic Flute, Marriage of Figaro's are playing for years together. In order to celebrate our special days, we go and watch it. In the concert halls, his concertos, symphonies are playing all the time. But what he had gone through. So, to start our investigation, I am going to read out few lines from Manuel Komroff's book on Mozart, and then a little letter which Leopold Mozart wrote to one of his friends in Salzburg from Vienna. We are talking about the year 1767. Leopold Mozart somehow managed to get some leave from the Archbishop because he wanted to take the family to Vienna to display his son's talents in front of the aristocrats. And from there, he writes to one of his friends in Salzburg. The people in Vienna are not capable of appreciating serious music, but they are attracted only to tricks and cheap melodies. They lack understanding and reserve their applause for the shallow and the worthless. In Komroff's words now, he wrote in this strong language because he felt that his son was not appreciated as much as he deserved. Komroff continues saying that Leopold Mozart was also disturbed by the jealousy of the musicians in Vienna who refused to attend young Wolfgang's concerts so that they could say that they had never heard him play and therefore could not possibly know if he was a genius or not. In Leopold Mozart's words, quote, "You see, this is why they avoid us, because if they saw and heard him, then they would have to admit the truth." So we are talking about 1767. Mozart was just 11 years old. And since that young age, he had to go through this kind of things. Fierce jealousy and all the time trying to please the aristocrats. We always talk about Mozart's short life. He died at the age of 35. But it is us, it is the society, it is the ordinary people, it's the mediocrity of ordinary people and the aristocrats who didn't understand him. So, within that 35 years, he could have composed a lot more things, but he had to go through all this. And that takes us to the next communication between him and the new Archbishop of Salzburg. We are in the year 1771. Leopold Mozart and young Wolfgang just returned to Salzburg from Milan. In Komroff's words, good Archbishop died on the next day after they arrived. He was a kind, understanding and tolerant man, and he was proud of young Mozart. But in his place, the Count of Colorado, the new Archbishop who was appointed, was not interested in music. He liked hunting, sports, and society. Komroff continues, the brilliant young composer and musician working in his orchestra meant very little or nothing to him. In 1773, Mozart still kept on trying to please the Archbishop But not only him. In Comroff's words, the fellow musician also poisoned the Archbishop's mind with false and malicious opinions about Mozart. And the ignorant Archbishop, in his crude and offensive manner, set himself up as a critic and judge. And Archbishop one day said to young Mozart, quote, "You know nothing about music. You ought to go to a conservatoire in Italy and learn how to compose properly." Mozart, who had already composed by then symphonies, operas, concertos, quartets, written music for piano, violin, horn, and other instruments. He had written sacred music for church. In Comroff's words, there was no one in Europe who could rival him in this. And this Mozart had to listen to Archbishop. I personally don't think that there is a single conservatoire exists in this world, in those days and today also, who could create another Mozart through their curriculum. Mozart wasn't born to follow grammar. Mozart was born to create grammar for Western classical music. But that genius had to swallow all these insults and kept on working under the Archbishop of Salzburg to earn his living. How tragic was that? So it's us, the ordinary people, the mediocre aristocrats, who actually did not let him compose, did not let him blossom properly because of their ignorance, his peer fellow musicians' jealousy and pettiness. That takes us to the third letter. And in Peggy Woodford's book on Mozart, we get to know that in the year 1778, he and his mother arrived in Paris at the end of March. And from the start, Paris was unenthusiastic and depressing. Mozart now hated everything about Paris. Mozart's mother, Anna Maria, hated Paris as much as he did. She was too simple and natural a person to feel at home in the cold and brittle sophistication of Paris life. She knew nobody there, had no spare money to go out and spend, so she stayed inside, unhappy, alone, for much of the day, while her son was out composing. Her health was already undermined by poverty, rough traveling in cold coaches, strenuous packing, living in cheap, poorly heated rooms, eating bad food, and finally drinking Paris water, which was known to be impure. She wrote pathetically to her husband, "My mode of life is not at all pleasant. I sit alone in the room all day long, as if I were under arrest. What is worse, the room is so dark and looks out on such a small courtyard that I cannot see the sun all day long, and do not even know what the weather is like. By great effort, I can knit a little by the few rays of light that enter. And for this room we have to pay 30 livres a month. The entrance and the stairs are so narrow that it would be impossible to bring up a clavier. Wolfgang must therefore go to Monsieur Le Gros to compose, because there is a clavier there, and so I do not see him all day and will soon forget completely how to talk. This letter was written the end of March 1778. She fell ill in April and she passed away on 3rd of July 1778. Mozart wrote Paris Symphony whilst he was in Paris. It is again an outstanding composition, but this was the reality. When Leopold Mozart got to know that his wife is no more, he blamed Mozart for that. You all tell me, does she deserve this, being the mother of the genius? And we all know that there was a child within Mozart. He was very childish, because I think he had to kind of keep his talent uncorrupted from the pettiness of this world. So Leopold Mozart always used to think that Mozart needs somebody beside him. So he requested his wife to accompany Mozart for this Paris trip. So again, the question comes, why this genius had to go through all this? Why Anna Maria had to face this kind of poverty? And that takes us to the last letter, which, couple of letters actually, which Mozart himself wrote to his best friend, the most trustworthy friend, Puchberg. And I'm reading it from the great author Paul Johnson's book on Mozart. This was in the year 1788, June. Mozart writes to Puchberg, "Your true friendship and brotherly love emboldened me to ask a great favor of you. I still owe you 8 ducats. Apart from the fact that at the moment I am not in a position to pay you back this sum, my confidence in you is so boundless that I dare to implore you to help me out with 100 gulden until next week." And then the next letter, 25th of June 1791, just 5 months before Mozart's death. Quote, "Great God, I would not wish my worst enemy to be in my present position. And if you, most beloved friend and brother, forsake me, we are altogether lost, both my unfortunate blameless self and my poor sick wife and child. If my wife had not contracted bed sores which make her condition most wretched, she would be able to sleep. She is extraordinarily resigned and awaits recovery or death with true philosophic calm. My tears flow as I write. Come and see us, most beloved friend, and if you can, give me your advice and help in the matter you know of. Once more I beg you, it hurts, isn't it? Mozart begging for money just 5 months before his death. Rescue me just this time from my horrible situation. As soon as I get the money from my opera, you shall have the 400 gotten back for certain. And this summer, thanks to my work for the King of Russia, I hope to be able to convince you completely of my honesty. I have now been obliged to give away my quartets for a mere song, simply in order to have cash in hand to meet my present difficulties. Send me what you can most easily spare. How tragic is that? And few months after that, we know that Magic Flute was premiered. So he was going through all this, and he wrote music which brings so much joy and happiness in our lives. His operas are showcasing in great opera theatre for months together, years together. We celebrate our special days going to watch those. Mostly each and every concert hall is playing his symphonies, concertos. But this unfortunate man had to go through all this. Why he died at the age of 35? Yes, in those days, people used to die at quite early age. But as we know from his mother's letter, throughout his life, he had to go through all this, living in a cheap accommodation, eating bad food. But Mozart didn't know how to manage money. When he got money, he used to buy new jackets and he used to spend in other things. But don't you all think that a genius like him should deserve this? So I personally thought that we have to actually discuss this. We have to share his pain, his pathos, and that would actually complete the celebration of Mozart as a human being. So I went ahead and composed a kind of melancholy tune. It's completely my original composition, but I shouldn't take the credit because, as always, my wonderful teacher, Mr. James Billingham, helped me as well this time. Actually, James is the one who told me to go through Mozart's letters to know him properly. And when I went through and I picked up just few, and I think I understand, I know the real Mozart now. And James as well helped me to structure the composition. So just before I go to the next section, musical section, what I genuinely feel that it is high time as a society we need to see out of the box. We cannot go on appreciating and nourishing mediocrity. Then we will lose many more Mozarts. We already might have lost, and we will lose many more Mozart in future. At least Mozart was fortunate to have Leopold Mozart as his dad, who himself was a very good musician, talented musician. So he understood Mozart's capability. But there will be kids around in this world who will go completely unnoticed because they are not ordinary, they are genius. So we need to come out from our tubular vision and from the wave of mediocrity and have a broader vision to appreciate a genius. And lastly, I just read a paragraph from the article of Robert Riley. When I started, as I started with his, a bit from his article, and now a few lines, which I thought that it would be important to share it and end this session. Robert Riley said, yes, Mr. Solomon would have it. Mozart reminds us that all is not well. But Mozart music is a sign that it will be. The existence of Mozart music is almost a promise that the loss is not irretrievable. The world to which it refers and out of which it comes really does exist. True happiness exists. True love exists. So does complete joy. But not here. As it preceded us, it will follow us. The sense of loss behind is also a sense of hope ahead. This is why Mozart's mention of death as man's true best friend is not morbid. Death is our means to completion. And that is why in Magic Flute we hear the line, the rays of the sun drive out the night. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll see you in the musical section. Let us all have a little time together to remember the great master, a melancholy tune